Did the Houston Rockets and Orlando Magic just set the market for this summer, for this offseason, and how that affects the Clippers? That's coming up here on Clippers Talk.
Here we go, Clips fans.
Clippers talk with Adam Osland. After every game, download every pod. Clippers talks the name. He's a basketball talking golden god.
New episodes after every game on demand.
Follow Clippers Talk wherever you get your podcasts.
Clippers.
Welcome into Clippers Talk. I'm Adam Osland. We got some more professional teas and open there. Coming up on today's show, we'll have Mike Jaglin on, the Jaguar, who you hear frequently as a contributor with 213 Hoops on the Lob, the Jam of the podcast. Plus, Tomer Azarly will be here from Clutch Points and from Oklahoma City. He's getting ready for Game 5 tomorrow night, with the series tied up at 2 games apiece in the NBA Finals. We'll talk about that and more, but we kind of just had some breaking news in the last 3 hours. A big trade went down.
Woo!
It's not nothing. It is not nothing at all, and it could affect the Clippers. Goes like this. Desmond Bane, and I told you guys coming up this summer to watch the Memphis Grizzlies, specifically Desmond Bane and John Morant. I think they most likely hold on to Triple J, but who knows at this point? It could be a complete teardown because Desmond Bane has been traded to the Orlando Magic. They've been looking for shooting. They shot just under 32% as a team last year from 3. They were desperate to get some shooting, some scoring, some floor spacing out there. KCP didn't do it for him. So they sent him to the Memphis Grizzlies. They brought in Desmond Bane for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, and 4 unprotected first-round picks, 1 first-round pick swap. That is a haul.
Woo!
The Memphis Grizzlies did well. At first glance, I would say they won the trade. It's early. The only way Orlando can win, and this is why it makes it easy to say Memphis won the trade, is Orlando has to win a championship to win this trade. At least get to the NBA Finals. The Orlando Magic are all in now. I understand it to a degree. It certainly feels like a lot for Desmond Bane and a team that was desperate to get into the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference with New York, with Cleveland, with Indiana, and Boston when they're healthy. The last 2 seasons, the Orlando Magic, they've gotten beaten in the first round. They're young. They still got, I don't want to say younger, but Desmond Bane is on the younger side. He's 26 years of age. Next to Paolo and Franz, who are 23 and 24. Here's why I believe they lost the trade. As good as this roster is, and it's a starting lineup right now of Suggs, Bane, Banchero, Wagner, Franz, and Wendell Carter Jr., is that enough to get over the hump in the Eastern Conference? Maybe if things break your way. But there's a lot of young guys there that need seasoning still and playoff experience. And if they lose in the first or second round, people are going to blame it on that. Well, they don't really have time to wait for these guys to grow into their roles because coming up in less than 2 years, I think they're going to be paying over $150 million for 4 players. 4 players. Desmond Bane, if you didn't know, just signed a big contract. He's under contract for the next 4 years, so you do have his prime years. I'm not sure his ceiling is as high as some people make it out to be. I think this is pretty much who he is as a player. Maybe he gets a little bit better as a self-creator, as a passer. He's been good at times when John Morant has been in and out of the lineup for various reasons. Desmond Bane has had a lot on his shoulders. He's a good player. He'll probably be an all-star in the Eastern Conference. But he's making $36 million this year, $39 million next year, 42 and then 44, where he'll be an unrestricted free agent the summer of 2029. Big, big money. Well, you know who else is making some big money already? Franz Wagner. He just signed a 5-year, $224 million contract. Let's see. What do the numbers say on this one? And where is my sound for that? Come on, Kawhi.
I don't know. What did the numbers say? Shit.
So this season, Franz Wagner, 38 million, then 41, then 44, then 47, then 51. He's an unrestricted free agent summer of 2030. So he's locked up for the next 5 years. Desmond Bane the next 4 years. And they're about to give Banchero an extension too. So he's going to be making, if he makes All NBA this year, $40 million a year as well. Right now he's at 15. He's a restricted free agent after this season. So he's got an incentive to play well, be an All NBA team guy, and all of a sudden he's on a huge contract of $200 million, also making $40 million a year. And Jalen Suggs, he makes some money too. Not cheap.
I don't know. What did the numbers say? Shit.
He's on a $150 million contract. $35 million this year. 32 next year. 30. 26. 26 and a half. So it's de-escalating. It's a descending contract. But it's a lot. There it is. 4 guys that are going to cost you over $150 million. You better win a championship then. I just don't know if they're going to be good enough. I respect it to a degree. They're at least young enough where you can make the argument that all 4 of them can still get better and grow together. But what are the casualties going to be for the Orlando Magic? This year, they're hard capped at the second apron. Who are the guys that could end up shaking out because they have to look towards the future, and paying all these players big money is Wendell Carter Jr., somebody they could end up trading. He's also young at 26. Because as I had mentioned before, I brought up a trade a week ago of Norman Powell being the shooter that Orlando gets, and the Clippers bring back Cole Anthony, who's now in Memphis, and Goga Batadze, who's their backup big that shows a lot of potential, is really good. He makes less than Wendell Carter. Do they move Wendell Carter? They have a team option this year of Mo Wagner. He's still just 28, the former Lakers pick, obviously brother of Franz. Team option of $11 million. I'm guessing they're not picking that up now. Does Mo Wagner leave his brother? Is that an option for the Clippers? Somebody that can play power forward and center. Is he going to want too much? If it was a team option for $11 million, does he think that he can get that somewhere else? Probably. He was getting 13 and 5 this past year. Injury prone season for him. I mean, this was a guy who tore his ACL. It was back in December. So maybe you can get him on less on a 1-year deal for him to prove that he's back. They're not picking up the $11 million, I don't think. Because the cap crunch is on now with the Orlando Magic. They have to look ahead. So you start thinking about who could shake out when trades like these happen. Who could slip through the cracks? Jonathan Isaac is making $15 million this year. 14 and a half, 14 and a half, 15 after that. So he's under contract for 4 more years, but I believe the last 2 years are not guaranteed. So really it's just 15 million this year, 14 and a half next year for Jonathan Isaac. You make a move for him? Injury prone. obviously. Thomas Ortega's in here trying to troll. I don't like this. I don't agree with this. I think this is hate. He said, is it true Adam was a diehard Laker fan in the 90s?
I hate the Lakers. I hate the Lakers. I hate the Lakers.
I was a Laker fan in the 80s with Magic Johnson when I was very, very young. By the time the 90s rolled around, by the time they got Kobe and Shaq, I couldn't stand them. And you know, I'm from Sacramento. So I can clear that up real quick. And if you guys want to get on and react to these trades, as we'll have Mike Jaglin coming on in about a half hour. Then a half hour after that, Tomer Azarly will be here. But 877-520-1150 is the phone number. 877-520-1150 is the phone number. And yes.
I hate the Lakers.
So we looked at Orlando's side, who could be available, because they have to be cognizant of the fact that they're going to end up paying Ben Caro soon, this summer or next. And they're going to have over $150 million tied up in 4 players. So they've committed to these guys. I don't hate it. Like I hate the Lakers.
I hate the Lakers.
Because there are at least 4 guys that are all young. Suggs is injury prone. Bane has had his own injury concerns. Not this year, but the 2 years prior. Ben Caro and Franz have had theirs too, but they are all young. They can all conceivably get better. They had to get somebody. I thought Anthony Simons might have been a better fit for them. Bane, probably slightly better defender, but still not great. They think they have enough guys around him that it's not going to matter. But 4 first-round picks for him, this is why we're talking about setting the market. What do these 2 moves, we'll talk about Steven Adams re-signing with the Houston Rockets yesterday means, but how are the Clippers affected? I'll go through the list of unrestricted free agent centers in just a little bit here and say, okay, if Steven Adams got this, what's this guy going to get? The Lakers have been talking about Amir Coffey. At least Jovan Buha of The Athletic has been talking about him. I could see that as a fit, but I don't know if he'd get much more money than he was already making, because outside of the Brooklyn Nets, and Lucas Hand made this point on the show a few weeks back, there just aren't that many teams financially that have the money to make moves right now outside of Brooklyn. The Memphis Grizzlies, I think it's about a wash with the guys they have coming in with KCP and Cole Anthony. So let's look at Memphis. They have 2 guys, what remains of their big 3, that are extension eligible this summer, in Ja Morant, in Triple J. Ja Morant currently making $39 million this year. He's got 3 years left on his deal, then $42 million, then $44 million. Jaren Jackson Jr. is the real one that's going to get a big raise. He's going to make about twice as much. He's 25. He's making $23 million this year. He's the one I said is most likely to stay when I was able to foresee that Memphis is one of those teams that could strip down their roster this summer, and it looks like it's happening. I would think they'd want to hold on to Triple J, but maybe he's available. Here's the other part of this. Memphis could lean 2 different ways completely. With them getting all those first-round picks back, does that turn them into the OKC Thunder, where they just get a grip of first-round picks and take their chances in the lottery? It's said to be stacked next year because so many guys, dropped out of being first-round picks this year. So next year, those guys that came back to college this year will be available, and it's a deep lottery draft. Do they go all in for next year? Do they trade Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. now? Or, because one of the picks they got back, my understanding is Phoenix's 2026 first-round pick, that could end up being a good pick. depending on where Kevin Durant goes and what Phoenix gets back for them in the West, there's no guarantee that you're making the playoffs. That could be a lottery pick. What if they say, hey, Phoenix, we got your 2026 first-round pick right here. Do you want it back? This should be more valuable than any pick you could get for Kevin Durant because it's yours. We'll trade you this and some other stuff for KD. I don't think they'd give up Triple J in that, but the idea there is you get KD next to Triple J and Ja Morant. Maybe you still trade Ja Morant. Like, this is a big fork in the road moment for the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't know which way they're going to go. Let's say it's more of a teardown. You guys have an interest in Ja Morant? Make it $40 million. Tough to make that trade happen. We're talking the same type of stuff you'd be giving up for KD, Norm, Bogey, DJ. I don't know why Memphis would be interested in that. A first-round pick. Ja Morant's ceiling isn't as high, I think we know at this point, as we thought a couple years ago. The shooting hasn't got much better. After he had one season shooting 34%, where he finished top 10 in MVP voting back in the 21-22 year. Since then, he shot 30% from three, 27%, 30%. He's had injury concerns. He's had off-the-court issues. He relies so much on his athleticism. All these ankle injuries he's had are concerning. And if he's not, refining his jumper, how is he going to age as a player? That's my biggest concern with Ja. He can still score. He can still fill it up. At one point, I think people thought he could be a number one on a championship team. I'm not even sure if he can be a 3. Now, what about Triple J? Somebody asked me this question earlier today, and I'll show it to you here and share my screen. But as soon as this trade went down, some were wondering how the Clippers can get involved. And they said, not saying I want it. This was from Jess at XCNOVC. Said, not saying I want it, but the Clippers traded, not saying I want it, but if the Clippers traded Zubats for Durant, is a sign and trade for Triple J even possible? Well, I responded saying, if you trade Zoo to the Suns, who are you going to give to Memphis for Triple J? They wouldn't have the assets. I don't think they'd have enough left. I don't think anybody really wants that. I think Zoo is off the table unless you're just getting so much for him. And with everything Orlando just gave up and the way they moved for Desmond Bane, does that increase the price of a lot of other players out there? Is the question. Same with Steven Adams. More on that in a second. But, okay, what about Brandon Clark? He's making $12.5 million the next 2 years. Would you be interested in him? Trying to think, how much has he played at the center position? I know he's a power forward. I know he's been injured. I know he did his Achilles a couple years ago. Could he be the tweener, power forward, also backup center for you? Conchar. This would be interesting. I don't think the Clippers would have a ton of use for him. Aldama is a restricted free agent. Remember that. People say get in on him. We've talked about Santi Aldama. Could he be the power forward for the Clippers? We know he can stretch the floor some. How is his defense, his switchability? I've never gotten a real clear answer about his defense. I'm interested. What about Jay Huff? He can shoot it a little bit at the center position. He shot 40% from 3 this past year. He's only making $2 million. That's probably one Memphis isn't willing to move because it doesn't really hurt them. He's in our contract the next couple of years for veterans minimum stuff. Nice player, though. Interesting. I don't know who the Clippers are able to get out of this, but it really depends on which direction Memphis goes. Again, I wouldn't be surprised, and while the reporting says that KD is interested in Miami or going back to Texas with either Houston or San Antonio, does Memphis come back to Phoenix with their 2026 first-round pick they just got from Orlando and say, we'll give you this back. So in case you guys do lose this season, you at least get something out of it. You have your own first-round pick. Other people want Scottie Pippen Jr., but he makes too little money. Why are they giving him up? He's only making $2 million as well. He and Jay Huff are bargain deals. Why is Memphis going to trade him? Even if they're doing a teardown, those aren't the guys you need to get rid of. They make so little. Same with G.G. Jackson. Same with Jalen Wells. You can hold on to those guys. That's not the issue. It's the guys who make the big money. Brandon Clark, Aldama is going to be due money as restricted free agent. We'll see how much he gets. Maybe a sign and trade for him. But what if they're not done? They just got 4 first-round picks. They give 2 of them, including Phoenix's 2026 first-round pick, back for KD. And maybe they give him some of those guys that we were talking about there. Marcus Smart isn't... People don't even realize he's no longer in Memphis. They traded him. He's in Washington. I just think there could be a Kevin Durant possibility now for Memphis. It makes things really interesting. It makes things... They're at a pivot point, an inflection point, the Memphis Grizzlies. Is it a massive sell-off? Is it a tear down? Is it a retool? I don't know. They may not know yet. They may just have said, we got to take this deal for Desmond Bane. We split his contract into 2 guys. KCP is a little over $20 million over the next 2 seasons. So he's an expiring $20 million contract after this season. I expect him to shoot better than he did last year with Orlando. I think people are too down on him. Orlando might have sold too low. And Cole Anthony's making about $13 million. And it's a team option for next year. So they can free up money pretty quick with those 2 guys, as opposed to holding on to Desmond Bane, who signed for over $40 million the next 4 years annually. They got worse, but they got much more flexible. And maybe they can get better with some of these assets and rerouting them. So this wasn't the only move that I think can affect the Clippers here. Clay says he thinks it's a win-win trade for both teams. I don't know, because Orlando now has to win the championship for this to make sense. Maybe they get to the finals, maybe conference finals, and it's successful. I don't know. I don't know what their expectations necessarily are internally. I could see it working out for them, but it was just a lot. If they gave up 2 first-round picks instead of 4 for Desmond Bane, I would have felt much better about it. Miles Johnson said, I'm not in the trade zoo trade, but seeing the Bane trade, I do think there's real value on selling high on a player when you're not a current contender. Are we sure the Clippers are that far away from being a contender? More on that in a little bit. But let's talk about the center position, specifically the backup center position, because Steven Adams just helped set the market there by re-signing with the Houston Rockets, 3 years, $39 million. Not sure if that's them using their non-taxpayer mid-level exception, but the math makes sense. So it could be that.
I don't know. What did the numbers say? Shit.
He was getting $12 million a year, so slight raise for Steven Adams, Aquaman. He'll be 32 when the season starts. So what does that mean for the other unrestricted free agent centers out there that the Clippers could be looking at? First name that comes to mind, Clint Capella. He was making $22 million this past season. He just turned 31 in May. Capella averaged 9-9 with 1 block per game in 55 games, started 40 of them in 21 minutes a night. His per 36 numbers are 15 and 15, which are about his per 36 career averages. Defensive field goal percentage within 6 feet of the rim. That's often what I use to judge rim protection. How guys shoot against you when they're within 6 feet of the rim. Capella was at 54.4%. Anything around 55% or lower is good. He's just about where Zubats was in that area. And we know how good Zubats is with his rim protection. As for finishing around the rim for Capella, he's not what he used to be back when he played with James Harden in Houston athletically, but he can still go get it. There's a YouTube video of Clint Capella of every dunk he has had this season, and he's calling for them pretty often. He says, put it up. Just lob it up. I'll put it down.
Get out there, Ben, and put that shit up, dog. Put it up, Ben.
Okay. Put it up to Capella. I had to get that in. Clavon, what's up? He's not Shaden Sharp. He can't jump that high. Who had the highest vertical leap this season, a 45-inch vertical. In fact, Shaden Sharp, just on a side note, he had 4 of the top 5 highest verts this year, with Ja Morant being the other player. Can the Clippers get in range of bringing in Capella, though? Well, the most likely path would be through the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. That's at $14.1 million. I think he's going to be around there, maybe less. He's no longer worth paying $20 million to. Zoo doesn't even make that on his new deal yet. You can't pay a backup center $20 million. What's the appeal then for Clint Capella coming to the Clippers? Well, here's the thing. It seems like he's already at that point in his career where he understands he's a backup for a good team, because as Okongwu got better to end the season, he started by January for Atlanta at the center spot, and Clint Capella was coming off the bench. Does Clint want to play with James Harden again? Is that a selling point for the Clippers? Reunited, and it feels so good. Be on a team that is thought of being more of a contender than Atlanta was for sure. And after seeing these playoffs in the West, I think you can make the argument with who the Clippers lost to and then who Denver lost to, that the Clippers might be one of the 4 best teams when healthy behind the Thunder, Nuggets, and T-Wolves. They could be closer than you think. Could that appeal to Clint Capella? I think he's gettable, but might take up the majority, if not all, of the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. And then if Ivica Zubats is playing 33 minutes a night like he averaged this past year, that leaves just 15 minutes per game for Capella. Is it worth giving up that much money for that guy if he demands the full mid-level exception? Is his position so important that you do that for 15 minutes a night from that player? That's tough. That's a decision. Next up on the free agent list of centers, Brook Lopez. Lopez made $23 million this past season. He just turned 37. He averaged 13 and 5 boards and 2 blocks a night in 32 minutes per game. He started all 80 games, unlike Capella, who eventually lost his job to Okongwu, as I mentioned. Lopez offers something very different from Clint Capella. He can shoot. He shot above 36% from 3 his last 4 seasons. He's a legit stretch big man. He can put it up.
Put it up, Ben.
Put it up, Brook. Is he okay with coming off the bench, though, for the first time in his career? Is he going to go from someone always starting and making big money to being okay with making much less and playing much less? He's a good locker room guy. We know that. Beloved champion in Milwaukee, plays next to Giannis. It works well because of his shooting in the front court. I don't think that means he could play a ton with Ivica Zubats. Zoo is not Giannis in so many ways. You could try it a little bit, maybe, but that's not necessarily the vision. You want him as a backup for Zoo. You don't want Brook Lopez to be having to guard a lot of 4s and forwards out there on the perimeter. I'd love Brook as a backup, but I think he's either going to make too much or want too big of a role, or is just flat out not going to leave Milwaukee because reports are Giannis isn't going anywhere. The reports are saying that he hopes to be returning to the Bucks and getting back to the finals with them was something he mentioned. I still think, though, there's a chance a team makes an offer to the Milwaukee Bucks that they have to consider, and then they come to Giannis to see if he wants to go there, and if he likes it, they'll do it. But apparently the plan is right now, according to Doc Rivers, to build around him enough to be a top 6 seed and hopefully get Dame back before the playoffs start. We'll see. My guess is if things go south early in the season, they'll be back to thinking about trading Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, I still don't think Brook gets close to the $20 million unless it's for one season only. If obviously he wants that much, that's out of the Clippers price range. But for him to go from 32 minutes a night to 15 as Zoo's backup seems like a stretch. As much as I'd love him as a backup stretch big, it looks remote unless his mindset is just, I'm good with being a backup now. Guys shoot about 58% at the rim against him this past year. The year before that was 55%. So he's dropped off. He's older. He's 37, but he's still good. He still played a lot of minutes this year. I know some people were getting on him in the playoffs. It turns out the Pacers are a really bad matchup for a guy like that. Like, I don't think that's just a Brook Lopez thing. What about someone even older, Clipper Nation? Al Horford is an unrestricted free agent coming off making $9 million this past year. He just turned 39. Averaged 9 and 6 and 1 block and 27 minutes a night in his 42 games this year for the Boston Celtics. Like Brook, he can shoot it. He's been even better from distance. He had a down year last year from 3, and he still shot 36%. But last 2 years before that, he was about 43%. Before you say he's old, I know. Before you say he's missed too many games, I know. The guy was still very good for them in the playoffs, starting and playing 32 minutes a night this past year. He was very productive. His shooting splits were over 40% from the outside. He's still good. This is not PJ Tucker. He's not washed. No offense to PJ. He wants to keep playing. Good for him. I'd love to have Al Horford for the right price, but he is a Boston legend, helped them win a ring last year. His family loves it there, apparently. He may just come back on a team-friendly deal, maybe less than the $9 million he was making, but maybe Boston blows it up to some degree because Jason Tatum's going to be out for a year. It could be a gap year. It's said that Jaylen Brown is even available maybe. So if you could get him, that'd be nice because with Al Horford, you got that change of pace, small ball stretch big that can switch and guard more than just centers. That's big Al for you. The advantage of him over Brook Lopez is while they both can shoot it from the outside, Al's better there, and he's also better with switchability defensively. Think like having kind of another bigger Nico Batum out there with all the key plays Al Horford makes too. Like, he's just a great connector. He's not a great rim protector because he's undersized, but not awful. Guys shot 60% within 6 feet of the rim against him last season. Another Boston Celtics that is a free agent is Luke Cornett, the Green Cornet, as they call him in Boston. He averaged 6 and 5 and a block per game while playing more games this season than Al Horford. He played more because Al Horford was injured more. 12 and 10 and 2 blocks are his per 36 numbers for Luke Cornett. He had a 7-block game, notably against the Knicks in the playoffs, you may have noticed. Players only shoot 50% within 6 feet of the rim against him this year. He turns 30 in July. He was on a minimum contract this past season, but he had better offers apparently. He came back to the Celtics last year on the cheap to try and repeat. He may get $6 million plus, maybe somewhere around the taxpayer mid-level exception, maybe more. Not a three-point shooter, but I think a good backup big if you get him. If you want someone more on the younger side, here's a nice option. Kevon Looney, who just turned 29 in February. His minutes were down to 15 this past season with the Golden State Warriors. He averaged 5 and 6 and half a block per game. His per 36 numbers, though, 11 and 15 and 1 block. Seems like the Golden State Warriors were going more with a younger, squad out there with some of those players like, I don't know, Quentin Post and Trace Jackson Davis to give them more time. So Looney lost out on some minutes. They had a minutes dip as the season went along with him. He's likely not coming back there. I want to think Coach Lou likes him because one time I heard him say, "Oh, Big Looney," watching him while he was being interviewed on another TV, I think in the locker room or something, or in his office. Come on, Looney had a crossover move or something. Fun to see for a big guy. But likely not coming back to the Golden State Warriors. They obviously also have Draymond Green who starts. I like Looney. He's had some really good moments over the years. He's still young enough, 29 years of age, not washed. His rim protection within 6 feet. Guys were only shooting 51% against him. He rebounds at a really high rate. Remember, 15 boards per 36 minutes. He's physical, likely cheaper than some of these other options outside of Cornette. Might be available around $6 million, maybe even the vet minimum. I don't know about that, but for 15 minutes a night, I think he'd be in a good spot. Yeah, and then if you can get him on the cheap and not use the taxpayer mid-level exception, use that on a power forward or backup point guard instead, that'd be real nice. Here's the last guy I'm going to bring up here before Mike Jaglin, the Jaguar, comes on the show here. He's a free agent. He might be my favorite of these guys. Yersin Yabusele. Yabusele, I like because of his versatility. First of all, he was on a vet minimum this past year with the Philadelphia 76ers after playing his last few years for Real Madrid overseas. He had a successful run with France this past year in the Olympics. You may remember that dunk he had on LeBron James. He turns 30 in December. He was originally a Boston Celtic a few years back. So as much as you may think, oh, he's a younger player because he just came to the league. No, he was in the league before, went overseas, came back this past year, and did shine and was one of the only bright spots for the Philadelphia 76ers. You probably are aware of that this past season. While making just $2 million on the vet minimum, he was giving them 11 and 6 in 27 minutes a night while shooting 38% from three, Yabusele, playing both center and power forward. He's not perfect at either, but he can play both. His rim protection is lacking. Team shot 64% within 6 feet of the rim against him. He's not a great rebounder, just 7.5 rebounds per 36 minutes. Some of that may be affected by the fact that he's guarding more out on the perimeter at times, but he's thick. He rolls hard to the rim. He's dunking everything like he's Montrezl Harrell for the Clippers in 2019, but he has more touch, obviously. So he can run a pick and roll and a pick and pop to some degree. He plays with a lot of passion and aggression out there, likes to beat his chest after a big play, can take a bigger guy off the dribble when he's at center. Watch some of the highlights with Jared Allen of the Cleveland Cavaliers if you're the Fro trying to guard him this season. Yabusele, I'm interested. How much is he going to get, though? This one's all over the map because he only made $2 million this past year. Is he going to demand the entire non-taxpayer mid-level exception, just over $14 million? Can you get him for less? He probably wants to cash in since he's 30. He might be out of the price range. Who knows? I don't know if the Clippers are getting any of these guys. Maybe they just bring back Ben Simmons. This is food for thought. See what some of you guys are saying. Thomas Ortega said Looney, not a bad pickup, but I have someone who's a way better rebounder in mind. Do tell. Don't leave us all in suspense here, Thomas. Who's the guy? Who's the guy that's a much better rebounder? Did I not bring him up? I mean, Looney, 15 rebounds. You have to look at per 36 to see the rate of what they're rebounding when they actually get more minutes, because obviously he was only playing limited minutes this season. So you kind of have to, flatten out and make it an even playing field by looking at guys and what their rebounding rate is per 100 possessions or per 36 minutes. Let's see. Deathstroke said, give me Looney or Yabusele or the green Cornet, Luke Cornet. Thomas Ortega's a jokester and said it's Angel Reese. How many of those are me bounds, though? Is that what people are calling them? You miss and get your own rebound? All right. Join the show right now. From the 213. As I forgive me. Switch to the headset mode now. From 213 Hoops. The Lob, the Jam, the podcast. You hear him there. You've heard him there for years. Longtime Clipper fan Mike Jaglin, the Jaguar, is joined here on Clipper Talk. How are we doing? How are we feeling?
Oh, we're great. It's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there and all the Clipper fathers steering this Clipper ship. So here we are, and it's great to be on with you. I always love talking with Clipper Nation and seeing where we're going to be, especially next season. I mean, it's a weird NBA now. Parody, and that kind of run it back mentality. I don't buy into that as much as most people do, just because this game is ever changing. It's constant, and with that, you can't say, oh, let's just run it back next year and find some margin players to maybe get some boom and bust. But I think it's going to be a heck of a off season. I do. I think across the NBA.
Well, let's talk about it, because there has been some movement the last couple of days, and I think some of it is relating to the Clippers and just how you set the market now with what we saw that was given up for Desmond Bane. Norman Powell was a guy we've talked about going to the Orlando Magic. Norman Powell is a guy that we've talked about for years being a trade chip for the Clippers. Hey, if Desmond Bane gets you 4 first-round picks, can Norm at least get you 1 if you wanted to move on from him, because he's up for a contract extension and may not be long for being a Clipper, only because it might not line up on the same timeline with Kawhi, with James Harden. We're assuming he comes back on a 2-year deal to be there right with Kawhi. But I was just talking about unrestricted free agents at the center spot, and I wanted you to respond to this and rank these centers, put them in order of most wanted, most likely, who you think would be the best guy to bring in to play backup center behind Ivica Zubac of these names here, Mike. I'll give them to you.
Okay.
So Capella, Lopez, Al Horford, Luke Cornet, Kevon Looney, and Yabusele. Put them in order. Best to worst there.
I'm going to eliminate Yabusele because I think he's more of a 4.
He played both this past year.
I know.
The Clippers options,
I mean, it could. And listen, I wanted them to sign him last offseason. I thought he was a guy that could really mold into what the current DNA of this team is. And, it just didn't happen. Philly came in and got him. If you can get Capella on a cheap deal, that would be great. But I don't think you're going to see Brook Lopez. I feel like he's more of a guy that's going to chase a ring, if that makes sense. Again, I love Yabusele. And then who else did we have on that? Cornet?
We got Cornet, Al Horford, and Kevon Looney.
Okay. I would then probably go, Cornet, and then probably go Kevon Looney. I like Looney. Looney is a perfect backup because he does a lot of the glue stuff. He's not going to jump out of the stat sheet, but he's going to play defense and get you boards. And honestly, I think it's all going to depend on way things shake out these next, few weeks. I mean, right here, we're looking and doing hypothetical of what we have, but what we have might not be what is the reality of this roster in a few weeks. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to be pulled apart and we're going to have a whole new ship, but I think an infusion of youth would only do them well to keep this window open if you're going to still keep Kawhi and James on this track. Does that make sense?
Who are the players then that could be that infusion of youth?
I mean, Ball's been out there. I mean, LaMelo's been a very, very, talked about link to the Clippers.
You think they have enough to get him?
I think they do. I think this Bane trade really puts things. You broke up Powell, but what happens if Harden opts in, and then he's expiring? You could flip him, and get pieces too.
What's Charlotte getting out of getting James Harden though?
They're not getting anything, but it's Charlotte. I mean, what do we expect? Are we going to make them happy? No, but I think you have to find a way to get younger. You brought up Trae Young. I love the Trae Young. I think you can buy low on Trae Young too. If Atlanta is going to blow that up, or at least go in a different direction. There are guys out there, but this Bane trade really really puts our pieces in perspective now. Because
I wonder if they can get more for Norman Powell than we thought with how much they just got for Bane.
I think you can get at least a first. I mean, Norm was on his track to win Sixth Man of the Year this year until he got hurt. And he came back and he played not up to Norm's speed, but I think that it's very possible. And he's a guy that would help a lot of teams.
Somebody brought up earlier today on Twitter at Follow Out of May. They said, "What about Norm for Harrison Barnes to bring in someone that can play the power forward, can start, and then put Kawhi in that 3 spot with the starting lineup?" I feel like the Clippers could get more than that. I like Harrison Barnes. I also don't know what that would do for San Antonio because they have Fox, they have Vassell, they have Castle, they have Johnson. They have too many guards. They have too many guys at that position. I don't know why they would want Norman Powell.
Also, too, I think Harrison Barnes, if KD were to go to the Spurs, he would probably most likely be part of that package. So you have to look at it in that perspective. I like Harrison Barnes. I like him more a few years ago. I don't think it doesn't move the needle. It's kind of a sideways move, honestly. I see his flexibility at playing multiple positions, but I don't think that really does anything for the Clippers. Again, if I'm doing stuff, I'm finding players that are younger. Nickeil Walker, for instance, he's been kind of brought up as a guy that the Clippers could facilitate a trade and find a way to get him. That's a deal I would like. That's a player that would work well with this team.
So Nickeil Alexander-Walker for the Minnesota Timberwolves, he is going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's coming off of just making just under $4.5 million this past season. He's 26, 27. He's obviously outperforming that contract. Can they get him by using some, but not all, of the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, you think, which is about 14.1?
That would be the game. That would be the move in that if you were to do that. You're getting a player that's 26, 27. Sure, he's inconsistent, but you kind of put it like a little, I don't want to say he's Malik Monkish, but like in that kind of realm. Does that make sense? That like he does things that and can have big boom games, but I feel that he's definitely gettable for that exemption.
Yeah, he offers more scoring punch while his defense is pretty good and it's probably a notch below, Chris Dunn and DJ. His offense is higher. He has a higher ceiling on that end. He's had, I'm looking at a good 7 or 8 20-point games this season, including against OKC in Game 4. He had 23 in the Western Conference Finals against them, had a 17-point game against them. So I think you'd end up moving probably Chris Dunn or DJ in another unrelated trade, or related to the fact that you'd be bringing in but with a different team, moving one of those guys then, because you'd probably have too many. But I would like him. I don't know how much on-ball juice he has for bringing the ball up the court, because that's one of the reasons Coach Lue has liked Chris Dunn in the starting lineup, to take less of the ball handling responsibilities off of James Harden. Cannot do some of that and be starting at the 2 spot. That would be interesting to me.
I would like it. Again, I think it brings another element to this team. And if you're still keeping Dunn or DJ, if you're keeping at least one of them, then you're going to be fine. But I think he would definitely work out well, playing alongside James, and he could take some of the ball handling duties away from him too, to take that out. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the NBA shapes up. I mean, I'm kind of shocked by this Bane trade. It just, like you're talking about Bane, you're not talking about Darius Garland, you're not talking about like Tyrese Maxey. You know what I mean? Like that was a pretty good haul that they got for him. And going back to Norm, he's at least a first. I mean, at least after watching this, right? I mean,
I think so. The only question is, it depends how much does the team need him, and how much are they willing to give him, because he has an expiring $20 million this year. So if you're trading for Norm and you're giving up anything of substance, you got to make sure you re-sign him. You got to make sure you're that in love with him. I think it's possible, because he was playing at an all-star level this year. He was right there. I think he had a case over making the all-star team over J-Dub.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Yeah, I think Orlando probably gave up too much, and they put themselves in a position where they're paying 4 guys over $150 million. And if they win the championship in the next 5 years, cool, it doesn't matter. It's all worth it. But if you don't, it could look like they used all their trade chips to bring in Desmond Bane. And while he helped them, he didn't get them to a high enough ceiling to be able to win it all. Yeah. That would be my concern.
And that's the thing. Like when you're giving up those kind of picks, like you need to get someone that is, an all-star caliber player. And I just don't. I feel like Bane's one of those kind of teetering guys that could possibly get on or be left off.
I think in the East there's a good chance he'll make it.
It depends what kind of Desmond Bane we get, and it depends the way that team looks. I mean, again, that team, to me, it goes with Pablo and Franz. Those are the 2 guys. If those guys want to be superstars, that team could take a leap. They could take like a Cleveland leap. But if they don't take that on, then we're going to look back in a few years and be like, what was that trade?
I think they definitely have an argument now that they're solidified as the top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. It's just, can they get into the upper echelon? And look, I think a lot of teams see the Indiana Pacers this year and think, why can't we do this? Why can't it all come together for us? Now, people forget Indiana was in the Eastern Conference Finals this past year. Like, people thought they only got there because the Knicks were beat up in that second round series last year. Well, that's obviously not the case.
No, and Indiana has one of the best coaches in the league. I mean, Carlisle's no dummy. I think he's definitely a top 5, maybe top 3 coach in this league, and I don't think he gets enough kudos. But again, the East is like you said. We don't know the way everything's going to look in a couple weeks. I mean, that's the weird thing. We don't know what Boston's going to do with Drew, and what's going to happen there. Where are they going to deal Porzingis? Is Jaylen Brown finally going to be on the block? There's going to be a lot of different elements, I think, to this offseason that are going to have a lot of teams scrambling. And hopefully the Clippers are, Frank's always been good at, going down and, fielding calls and getting his paws wet with things. So hopefully there's something out there that arises, because maybe, again, you and I have talked about this too. Maybe they're facilitators, maybe they're facilitators in a deal that they just get, they trade a Norm, they get a pick back. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many different scenarios that we're going to see over the course of the next few weeks that our heads are going to explode.
You called it, I believe, this is the NBA's version of SummerSlam.
It is SummerSlam, because again, we don't know. It's not the day and age it was when we made that trade for Kawhi, getting Paul George and Kawhi, that you needed these superstars to win. Yes, you do need one or two superstars to win a title. That's just the way it is. It's the way the sport has always been. But that being said, there is a lot more balance and there's a lot more depth that goes into being successful now too. Look at the Pacers, look at the Thunder. They're both very deep teams, so I think the margins play a lot bigger of a factor than having stars at this point. You need to have 1 to 2 stars to win a title, but you do need to have that depth and that DNA that kind of oozes to other players. I mean, and you've seen that with the 2 teams in the finals.
So you brought up one younger player you're interested in that I've talked about before, in Trae Young. We'll get to him in a second. I want to bring up somebody else that I've been talking about a little bit on this show that I find to be an interesting guy because I think he's on a team with a really bad fit right now. He's just turning 23. That would be Jonathan Kuminga. What interest level do you have in someone like that?
I'm all in on Kuminga. I think you, when you look at Kuminga and like Mathurin on Indiana, they're very similar. I think Mathurin has a little more on-ball juice in regards to being able to handle a little bit better, but they're very similar because they both have potential to be breakouts, but they haven't been tapped into enough. And I would go after Kuminga. I mean, if you had to do a norm for Kuminga and something else, I mean, I just don't know what their asking price is going to be, because last year, if we would have been able to trade Paul George for Kuminga, I would have done that in a heartbeat. I would have, and that's what I wanted. But the Warriors were not. They probably would have done that deal if it happened in season, but
right.
not when they when Kuminga was kind of on the outs of the rotation. But now I feel like Kuminga is a guy that someone's going to get him. Now, will he develop? I think it all depends on where he ends up. But he would be a phenomenal Clipper.
I think he's going to get at least $20 million a year,
maybe more.
Which
he'll get more.
At least $20 million. That's the floor. I said I would go up to 3 years, $30 million a year, meaning 3 years, $90 million total. I would do that and take that risk because the Clippers are set up to have so much cap room in the summer of 2027 that even if Kuminga turns out to be a bust or not the player you thought he was going to be, he only has one more season on the books for $30 million. It's an expiring contract, and the Clippers still will have other money to play with because conceivably they'll have Kawhi and James Harden off the books summer of 2027 should James Harden re-sign for 2 years this summer. So I think it's worth the risk. I think you have to take some of these risks when you don't have the draft picks.
You have to look for boom and bust guys. You have to look for guys that have the upside, that have kind of beleaguered through their current organization, but that there's something there. The team has to, especially like I was saying, this is a current NBA that, again, there's so much parity, and you have to be aggressive. And Lawrence has always been aggressive, but that we have to get some infusion of youth in this team. That's been my big thing, this off season, is that we have to get younger. Does it mean restarting this entire ship? No, it doesn't. But bringing in some younger blood to go with either Kawhi or James, I think would only be beneficial to, one, keep the window open, and two, you're building your next bout of Clippers.
So Jonathan Kuminga will be 23 this season. Trae Young will be 27. Trae Young is owed about a little over $40 million for this season, and then has a player option for next year. He's going to opt out. So they might have a decision to make in Atlanta now, rather than wait for the possibility of losing him for nothing. They could extend him this summer and then trade him. They could just trade him and not extend him. I am interested, but that's a big shakeup because I don't know if he and James Harden can play together. And so now you're dependent on what James Harden does. If he opts out, becomes a free agent, is fine going elsewhere, and you feel like Trae Young is his replacement, a younger version in some ways of James Harden. I'd be interested in that. I don't hate that, but he has obvious drawbacks because of his lack of size.
His lack of size and his defense. I mean, let's be honest. But, he is a guy that has juice. And players that have juice and are all-stars like Trae Young don't grow on trees. I mean, it would be hilarious if somehow Luka and Trae Young were both in LA after they started their careers getting traded for each other. That would be a fun little subplot. I like Trae a lot. I feel like if you would have to give up James. You would. I mean, I think you would have to. You. What you're looking at is if he opts in. What is his date to opt in? Do you know?
James Harden? I think it's June 30th.
Is it June 30th? Okay, so you're going to know more on that opt-in date because then you're going to have that possible expiring salary if you don't sign him to a 2-year deal. Which I personally would try to find a way to get a Trae Young, to get a LaMelo Ball, to get some youth in there and move off of James. That's just me. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know. I mean, everyone seems to feel that they're just going to play this 2-year plan. But to my argument, we don't know what the league's going to look like in 2 years. And that's why I'm so I'm so gung-ho about, like, let's figure out shaping this and getting some youth involved in the next, part of the next run, and then add on to it. But because if we go big fishing again and the fish aren't there, what are we going to do?
Yeah. I was looking at some of Trae Young's pull-up numbers from three, so off the bounce numbers. They weren't as good this season. They were down. Last season, they were at 37%. I want to say this year they were below 34%. Like, there are some warning signs that, he's not getting better necessarily or turning in to the poor man's Steph that I think people hoped he would be. But he is still young enough where I have hope in him progressing. I think it depends on what the contract is going to be, because some speculate that Atlanta is going to play hardball with him. While he's a draw ticket-wise, obviously, they made that, I think, fluke Eastern Conference Finals a couple of years ago when Philadelphia blew that game against them in Game 7, and Kevin Huerter, not Trae Young, led them to that Game 7 victory in the second round. And they haven't been that competitive. They've been a play-in team the last 2 years. They're starting to get better. They have some other young guys now that are ascending, like Dyson Daniels. I think they'd be interested to move him, but how much are you willing to go in on him if he wants $200 million? Like, are you going to give Trae Young that contract?
If you're trading for Trae Young, you're expected to do that. I mean, let's be honest. Like, that just is, you're in the Trae Young business if you make that trade. You're not playing hardball with him. You're getting him here. He's coming to LA. You probably still have Kawhi. Then if you had to get off James or Norm, for this trade, you probably have one of those left that you could send somewhere else and bring something else in. I just feel like it would be a nice win for the organization to have someone like Trae Young. Again, too, like you said, he's 27. And, he's been a pretty consistent all-star most of his career. I don't think he's really had a guy with him like he would have with Kawhi. Like, I don't think he's ever had, that guy that he can count on, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like if you ride Trae a little more, maybe, if you had Na and Trae as your backcourt, wouldn't you be a happy camper going into the next year?
I think it would be exciting.
Yeah.
My only real question about Trae is, can you win with him at the highest level, or does he have fatal flaws? Because of his size, he gets picked on defensively, and later on in the playoffs, there's just no way to compensate for that. And therefore, your ceiling's not as high. But is it worth the risk for a player this young that's this fun to watch? Like, he has the LaMelo factor as well. Mm-hmm. Where the flashiness, some people would say it's style over substance, but it's also a fun brand of basketball. We haven't had like a long range marksman type really with the Clippers on volume like this off the bounce,
No. I mean, we had, JJ running off screens in Lob City, but like you didn't have that guy that's going to pull up from half court and just drain it. And that's what he'll do. Sure, he has flaws. There's a reason why he's, on the block and why, Atlanta hasn't decided to give him that big contract. But that being said, like, he's a guy that if you get the possibility to trade for it, you have to do it. Especially if you're trying to keep Kawhi going in this organization. I feel like he would be a guy that would really mesh well with the culture. Sure, he would get picked on defensively, but Luka gets picked on defensively. I mean, there's so many players that don't have that, 180, two-way game, per se. So I would go in on him. I really would.
How far away, you mentioned early on about standing pat or running it back, after seeing these playoffs and the way things have gone with Denver taking OKC to 7 after beating the Clippers in 7, how far away do you think this group is as constructed currently?
I think they're a playoff team. They're a playoff team. They're
a second round exit at best? Yeah.
And I just feel like that's the build. Like when you have a guy like Kawhi that's not going to play every day, you have an aging James that is still playing his heart out and had an all-star season. It's hard to have all the chips kind of fall your way again after they kind of did this postseason. They got the matchup that they probably wanted. But the problem with that series was that they let the games go that they needed to steal. I mean, we all know that. Game 1 and game 4, it goes another way. They win the series, but that's basketball. And seeing that, you also have to look at it in reality and be like, well, they weren't good enough. They weren't, because they didn't get the game 1. They didn't get that game 4. And they just look gassed in game 7. And that's if you don't get an infusion of youth into this team, if you're keeping Kawhi, keeping James, or whoever you're keeping, you're not going to have that chance to break through. You'll make the playoffs. I think they'll be a good team, but they're not going to be a championship aspiring team in my mind.
How have you felt watching SGA during this playoff run and now in the NBA Finals?
I'm happy for him. I mean, he was someone that, I would have loved to. I wish that somehow they didn't screw up that Robinson pick, because I mean, if they didn't screw up that Robinson pick and you get Porter or you get, someone else, Herter even at that point, if you get someone else, that person is probably going to OKC. And the way it went, you have to do that deal if you're the Clippers. And you didn't think that he was going to turn into, arguably the best player in the league or one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, I think the consensus was at the time, I've said it ad nauseum, but we thought he could be a multiple-time All-Star. I didn't hear anyone say he's going to be an MVP candidate and then win it.
No one said he's going to be generational,
no. And credit to him.
Oh, great credit to him. And honestly too, like, we don't know if SGA becomes this, current version of SGA if he stays with the Clippers. He got really lucky, his first year in OKC, and he was mentored by Chris Paul. And, I really feel like that helped kind of round him and create that kind of dog in him too that you see today.
Are you rooting for him to win in the finals, or is that going to hurt too much?
No, it's not going to hurt. I mean, I think we're past that. Will it sting? Yes, but they went for it, and when you go for it, there's going to be a boom or a bust, and unfortunately, it was more bust than it was boom for the Clippers. And now, and also too, like, Jalen Williams became one of the picks they traded over. So you gave them 2 All-Stars
Yeah.
for, what was left of prime PG for a couple years, So, I mean,
To get Kawhi, let's be real.
it was all for Kawhi. It was
Yeah.
all for Kawhi. But I just, I think everyone in Clipper Nation is just like, why couldn't he just have been happy and signed? And then they would have still had their treasure trove of picks. And then it's easier to go out and get something else, in season or the next season that works to what you need to do. But they put all the chips in, all the chips and their young horse. And unfortunately, now, you're seeing Desmond Bane getting moved for 4 first-round picks, and you're like, well, we don't have 4 first-round picks until the next generation. So,
Clippers,
you know what I mean?
Clippers' first pick they own in the first round is in 2030.
Yeah.
I think it's slept on a little bit that Kawhi probably looked at it from the perspective of, I have a chance to be the first player ever to go back to back with 2 different teams as the lead dog. And he wanted a ready-made team after winning the championship in Toronto. If he was going to leave Toronto, he was going to do it for a team that was also ready to win. But I get it. It's frustrating now at this point. Clipper Nation is hurting out there.
Well, and they should be. I mean, again, like the fact that this franchise is still still in a competitive mode is a great thing. Just this has been one of the most successful franchises in the last 15, 16 years, like making the playoffs over 500.
I think they have the second best winning percentage over the last 15 years in the league. They just haven't won it all. They've done everything but win it all.
No, they haven't gotten to the finals yet. That's the one thing that that probably would have happened in 21.
And you can't account for Kawhi tearing his ACL. Lawrence Frank should have been like, yeah, we could trade for him, but in 2 years, he might tear his ACL. Like, nobody's planning on something like that while we're on a playoff run to win it all.
No, but that, again, like, as much as we want to talk about a Clippers curse, that, again, I would have, I think that will be there until they get over this hump. It's just the way that this franchise has been. But that's one of the lovable things, is that, like, they're the lovable losers in town. Like, that's what drew me to them as a fan 20 years ago, and that's what drew me into covering this team, especially when I did Clipcast over the Lob City time, just being part of the team and really believing. And you felt that Lob City team, if it could have got past OKC, that was probably their best shot to win it. And, that the next year, then we know the 3-1. But that team, I don't think that team was as good as the team during Sterling Gate that lost to OKC.
I agree.
That being said, the year that they traded Blake, they were still competitive. They were still over 500. Like they find ways to stay competitive. It's just where's this next infusion going to come from, and when? Because again, if you wait on this 2-year plan, you don't know what things are going to look like. I mean, we're talking now, and like I said, SummerSlam's going to erupt, and then we're back at square one again, breaking down everything that went down and saying, what are the Clippers doing, or what did they do?
Since you were so close to Lob City, would you welcome back CP3 as a backup point guard this year?
In a heartbeat. Let him retire as a Clip. He had, it was an interesting time here. That was a phenomenal. I mean, Chris Paul once told me to coach the team, because I was at a post-game presser. I said to him, what's going on with the ball movement? There's a lot of hero ball going on. And he looked at me and he goes, why don't you come coach this team? And but that again, CP is someone that can really, really, if you bring in younger players, like if you brought in Trey and CP to bring them up, CP off the bench, that's a great little combo.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And that's a combo that you might be playing at the end of games. Even though it's a small combo, it's heady basketball.
I think most people are good with Chris Paul coming back, reuniting whatever bad blood there was. That's all. There's been enough distance between him leaving and some of the stuff he said after they traded him, and then what happened in Phoenix in that Game 6. I think everybody's good with Chris Paul.
I think everyone would be good with Chris Paul, and I think Chris Paul would want to come back because he's been away from his kids for 6-7 years. So
exactly, he's mentioned wanting to come back to LA. So, all right, Mike, it was good to have you back.
Great to be here.
Back here on Clippers Talk. Where can everybody find you?
They can find me at Mike Jaglin or at MJ24 on Twitter. I actually got to get my socials better, Adam. So you reminded me. Next time you have me on after SummerSlam's ensuing, if you need me for any breaking stuff or whatever, just let me know. I'm here. I can't wait to see what happens next. It's going to be great.
Mike Jaglin, the Jaguar. Thanks for doing this. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Take care, buddy.
From one guest to another here on Clippers Talk. Well, we mentioned SGA, the NBA Finals going on, how Clipper Nation may feel about it. We got a Game 5 from Paycom Center tomorrow night. And now joining us from Oklahoma City would be Big Tomer Azarly. Oh, and a tank top, no less. Tomer, how we doing? Tomer?
Sorry, I had myself on mute. I'm great, Adam. I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm all good here. How about yourself? How are you doing?
I can see you.
Yeah, you know what's funny? My screen is black once again. I can't see anything.
Oh my God. You're the only one.
To be honest, no guest, as far as I know. No guest back here.
Okay, we're not going to have your brother changing in the background like we had a few times ago. We'll try to move past that. Tomer, I appreciate you doing this. What has this trip been like for you as opposed to, this isn't your first NBA Finals that you've covered, I'm guessing. So what's this experience been like?
No, definitely not my first, but it is the first that will be going 6 games in person. I think the first one that I had was the 22 finals, and that was like half Zoom, half in person, so I could be in attendance for like the press conferences on practice days, but not the game days. I was stuck on Zoom because they had a limited tier system, whatever, back then. So, and then we had the last 2 years was a 5-game series. I think we both kind of know, everyone knew who was going to win those series, and so this year was the first one. That's just it's been fun. It's been really fun. It's been a grind. I think everyone kind of had a feeling OKC would pull out Game 4. They made it a lot more dramatic than they needed to. But no, I just tweeted out a couple minutes ago. This series right now, at this point, feels like it's just you forget what day of the week it is, and you're just going off. I have practice today, game tomorrow, flight the next day. Ever since Game 3, that's how it's felt. It's just practice, game, travel, practice, game, travel. So, no, it's been fun so far. It's been amazing. I've had a really good time. These teams are very fun to watch, and so I'm excited for this 3-game series we have now.
Who did you have going into this series, and what surprised you most between the OKC Thunder and the Pacers?
Yeah, so I had OKC in 6 in this series coming in. I know a lot of people obviously underrated Indiana, but you don't get.
Yeah, you were calling them out on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I think people would just a lot of people who claim to know basketball kind of just maybe they were just really high on the Thunder than they were low on the Pacers, but I think the Thunder have shown this kind of propensity to struggle offensively and to let that affect their defense at times this postseason. We saw it against the Nuggets. We saw it at times against the Wolves. They even had a game against the Grizzlies where they were down, I think, 29 before they came back and won. So they've shown the propensity to kind of slow down a bit. And this Indiana team is obviously a team that will make you pay for your mistakes. And they have the most they're the most next play mentality team that I've ever seen. Really, they could be down 15-20. You can get scored on 3 times in a row, and you can't tell on their faces. Their mindset is always just, all right, how do we get this back? How do we get back to the next play? Get another stop, move on. So I had OKC in 6, but this has still been a pleasant surprise to watch. I think each team, I've never experienced these teams home course before, so getting to witness it on this level has been incredible. And so I'm really just excited to see who can kind of win the margins here, win the 50-50 balls, all the little things. I think that's what this series really comes down to, especially in a series like this.
what's your relationship like with SGA? Were you there at draft night, or we were all in that room at the old Clippers training facility when he and Jerome Robinson were drafted? How much interaction did you have with him that rookie year with the Clippers? Does he remember you? What's the situation like?
Yeah, so we were all in that room, that practice facility room, I believe, where we had I believe it was a phone interview with the rest of us after they were both drafted, and then I think I asked a couple questions there, and then they had the actual introductory press conference, where they held the jerseys up and everything. So
Right.
no, he definitely remembers me. We've talked every time they come to town. I'll say what's up to him. He remembers me. We'll have a quick chat. Yesterday after the game, I wanted to show him the stat that I tweeted out about the most points in the final 5 minutes, and he dapped me up before, and he was super cool about that. Him and both Isaiah Hartenstein too. But yeah, I mean that was I believe my third year or second year. My first year was 16-17, the final Blake Griffin, Chris Paul year. So that was like my third or fourth year, whatever it was. And so, yeah, I mean, look, Shea, I think is I don't think anyone really saw this kind of an explosion coming as an individual player. But, I don't think it could happen for anyone better. I think he's always been a very down-to-earth, very humble guy. Even dating back to his rookie season, I know he wasn't a big talker, but even then he was a very family guy, liked to have fun. Wasn't really. I don't even think he had a license when he got drafted. He was that much of a not really about the outside world like that. So no, it's been great to see his development and his growth. And I know a lot of Clipper fans might not be happy with it, but there's a chance he could win his first championship and MVP year, championship year in the same year. It would be incredible, really.
How much, as you're there covering the NBA Finals, is the trade brought up between media members, or people know you cover the Clippers? Do they rub it in your face? How much of the scuttlebutt is, or just how much of the murmurs and the chirping is, man, the Clippers really let this guy go?
I mean, I think there's two sides to it. Like when you look back at it, all 29 teams had the opportunity to trade a rookie for a 2019 Finals MVP and a top 3 MVP finalists would do it. If they had the chance to acquire those two, they would do it. I think all 29 other teams would do that in a heartbeat. I think it's just tougher now because you look back at it and realize he had a clear runway as OKC's guy, and really they let him play through a ton of mistakes. And a lot of young guys sometimes need that, just to play through mistakes and learn through their own errors and grow that way. And so I haven't had anyone bring it up. I know we probably had it asked once or twice to start the NBA Finals, like in the media day before. But it hasn't been a big topic, to be honest. I think everyone's been very present with these finals. And I think acknowledging the fact that, again, like I said, one, all 29 of the teams would have done that. And two, I don't think anyone saw this kind of explosion from him as an individual player coming. I think everyone knew he's really talented and had a chance to be really good, but not on this level, I would say. Definitely not on this level.
We got Tomer Azarly from Clutch Points as our guest here on Clippers Talk, coming to us from a hotel in Oklahoma City. I don't think he's wearing a tank top that's actually an Oklahoma City Thunder jersey, just because it's orange. I don't think it's the new Clippers City edition either.
Just Nike.
Okay. Does this series have the weight to it that it should? Because a lot of us have pointed out, well, first of all, the casuals saying, oh, we're the superstars. It's like, well, the MVP is in the series right now. They want LeBron. They want Steph, KD, Giannis, guys like that. It's not a big market series, but also just in the way it's been marketed. I put up the full video of what the NBA Cup final game looked with the presentation and how the court looked versus how the court looked here. And Adam Silver has addressed it. How much scrutiny has there been on just this not feeling like it's meeting the moment of what an NBA Finals should look like? Or is that already in the past after the first couple games?
So I will say this: in person is obviously very different. Like we don't watch the broadcast, and we don't have the ability to see how they do the pregame show, the postgame show, all that. So, um, in my years covering it, this feels like, an NBA Finals. Like I think you have the media availability before you see the immense the influx of media from international countries coming over, abroad and coming over and they each have their live shots and in the stands recording pregame and postgame, and everyone's kind of got their own setup going. So like coverage of the NBA is immense. Like there's so many different countries here covering the sport that to me it really does feel like it's an NBA Finals game. The NBA Cup wasn't nearly on this level as far as international coverage. And then I think people talk about like the court decal and everything. Like that was so I've actually had some conversation or tried to have some conversations about it. I think the toughest part about that is that it's the decal is slippery itself, so you can't really implement that and risk player safety. I think that's the number one thing that the league just does not want to do no matter what. But second, I think that if you were to do it like the NBA Cup, which is basically a brand new court, you would have to create a brand new court for both arenas with the NBA trophy kind of in the design.
Didn't they used to do that though? Like in 2010, Lakers Celtics
They were
wasn't
always decals. They were always
that
decals.
was a decal at the middle of the court?
They were always decals from what I understood. Yeah. So the turnaround from when a series ends, like the Pacers, you had, I think, when they won Game 6 against the Knicks or whoever it was that won Game 6. Yeah. I think there was like an off day, travel day, media day. So by media day, it's already got to be ready. So you're asking for a very quick turnaround for some of these teams to produce courts, for the NBA to produce courts. And so I think, I don't know if it's a realistic ask. I know it's probably much more difficult than we would imagine. But I also think there's probably a bit of nostalgia that maybe the NBA wants to kind of leave in the past and leave that to it. And then, maybe try to come up with newer things. Again, in person, it hasn't felt like anything less than an NBA Finals because of the added media coverage, because of the final script and the championship trophies in the hallways and behind the basket stanchion and all that. So it's really felt like that to me. And both even the crowds. I mean, the T-shirts have been fantastic. The crowds have been fantastic. And the overall game presentation by both the Thunder and the Pacers, game arena people, has been amazing. So really, it's felt like a finals to me. There's been no issue as far as that goes. I know you mentioned the superstars not being there, and it's a lot of people's complaints.
F them.
I think the one thing that people forget is that in order to create superstars, they have to get to this level and win. And I think some of what crafts these storylines in their careers is, all right, some of these guys got to the finals and lost and had to find a way to come back. Some of these guys took them years to get to their first NBA Finals before they won. Like I think these storylines are crafted by guys making it. Like if LeBron and Steph and KD were to make it every time, I just don't know how you'd be able to. You'd say, well, Shea never won one or Tyrese never won one. Like these guys got to get here and build their storyline, build their careers out. And I think this is how the NBA kind of moves into the future, by a guy like SGA or Tyrese winning it, and then coming in next year and seeing how they can try to repeat or how will they bounce back off their finals loss. I think all those storylines kind of go hand in hand. So, in short, F them. But I think you need these kind of new players and new blood in the finals, and I think it's just really important for the league, honestly. So,
was there anything Adam Silver said that really stood out to you about the state of the league? Did you ask him any questions at his press conference? Just what did you hear that kind of made you go, oh, that's interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I think his most lively response came to the the question about the ratings and how the discourse around that has been. And I know that everyone's going to complain about ratings, and I think you'll find stats, and I think this goes for anything. You'll find numbers that will fit your narrative, no matter what you want it to be. I think that applies to. We've seen it apply with like on-court numbers. I think you'll see it apply to stuff like this. So I think there's a lot of context to some of what the rating stock has been, which is again what Adam Silver kind of responded well to. He said, I think we're like the only league that's talked about this way, and he wants to be careful because being talked about regardless is still good. You still want to be talked about, even if it might not be as positive. But I think the NBA especially has shifted to more of a they've had the streaming platforms and all that, and the regional sports network issues. But I think people consume games on social media more than ever. They consume highlights and clips on social media and player interactions and all that on social media. And so I think that part isn't being talked about as much. And I've tried to report on it and put out some of the numbers, but like the league's social numbers, as far as like engagement views, are just like, I think they're up 67% from last year's totals. Like they're over 1 billion this postseason. Like, again, the ratings and the TV numbers might actually be lower, but people are just consuming more and more on social media. That's just how people consume it. We're in an era where people want bite-sized content in 30 seconds to a minute content form, and they want to be able to consume that and move on to the next thing. And so, as far as like social media, the league has done a really good job of that. And then, when you look at the specifics of like, what are people watching on game nights? Like, people are watching NBA games, which is something that Adam talked about and something that the numbers have kind of backed. So, as far as like Adam goes, I think that's been something interesting that he said. Just the way he lit up about how this league is the only one that's talked about as far as like ratings and all that. And something that I really don't understand why people bring up is that like the TV deal's already signed. Like they're starting an 11-year deal starting next year.
80 billion.
I don't even know if I'll be alive to see that deal through. Why does anyone care about ratings right now? Like I don't know. I struggle to really understand that. And so
people get off on hating on the NBA. Old heads, nostalgia merchants, they love to hate on the NBA. Gives them a chance to S on LeBron, say why Jordan's better. There's a lot that goes into it, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think that's something that he said as well. He said that maybe we need to find more ways or more creative ways to market the league in a positive manner. But also, I think he said this too. He said it was Joe Dumars who said this. Before he moved to the Pelicans, he was at the league office, and he said, this is a league where someone's always going to try to find something negative to keep harping on and move on. Like, no matter what, they're always going to try and find something. And to your point, so like,
well, even some of the broadcasters for the league are being negative about it. And I love the TNT guys, now the ESPN guys as much as anyone, but I do wonder, like, is it worth their slights against the NBA for the jokes and the great show it is, but it comes at an expense, I think, to the league at times.
I think it does, and I think they've realized that, and I think that's what if you look at some of the roster that they've put together for both NBC and Amazon, I think there's going to be some heavy hitters there, as far as actual NBA, former NBA players and NBA hosts. So I think the hope is that it'll be marketed more positively and maybe celebrated more, I guess is the way to phrase that. Celebrate more of the big wins instead of harping on, I think at this point debate shows are just absolutely worthless. They're just talking points for the day before we move on to the next news cycle. They're such a waste of time, and I can't believe as many people consume them as much as they do. But I also understand why, because those are just I think we've just been, I don't know if nurtured is the right word, but just like forced into this alley of like, this is what NBA content is. And so I think we have to sort of weed our way back out of that. And I think that starts with some of the new league partners and Amazon, NBC. And, we'll see what ESPN has in store for their coverage moving on. It hasn't been great. It's been pretty shitty, actually. But we'll see. But I think definitely you're right. I think it does start with some of the league partners and the broadcasters and marketing the league in a more positive light.
Do you think, based upon the two teams facing off in these finals, tied up at 2 games apiece, that there has been a drastic change in how teams are built, constructed, how salary caps are navigated? Do you think this is going to be a copycat league with everybody looking at OKC and Indiana and saying we have to do things more like that?
Indiana, maybe. OKC is just OKC was in a special situation, I think, because they
unique.
I think there was one year where they bottomed out and they were able to get Chet because, in fact, they shut down Shea. They bottomed out, got Chet. I think there was another year where they I think was it the year Chet got injured? Were they able to get J-Dub? I forgot which one it was, but they were able to retain a top 12 pick or something like that, which they barely got because it was the year that the Clippers that Paul George caught COVID and the Clippers missed out on the postseason, ended up being in the lottery. Despite the Pelicans being 8 games worse, and that pick ended up being J-Dub. Whereas if it's flipped, that pick would have been 14 or 15. So like there were certain things that happened, obviously, and then Shea obviously becoming an absolute superstar. So like, there were certain things that happened. I think maybe they have the blueprint, but it's not something you can just mimic or replicate with ease. Like I think Indiana too. I mean, look, when some of these big contracts start kicking in, what do you do with a guy like Nemhard or Benedict Mathurin? Like, I think they have decisions to make as well. So, I think there will be a certain level of wanting to mimic these teams, but I think every team's going to have to find their own kind of angle at creating championship level rosters because this CBA and this new cap limitations and all that are very problematic. I mean, it's been talked about here by media members and by some teams that we've, that have been around. And so it's definitely top of mind, but, I think every team's going to kind of have to find their own journey to cap flexibility, avoiding the second apron, and hopefully competing for championships.
What was your reaction to the Desmond Bane trade earlier today?
I mean, it's interesting. I thought that, from what I understood during the year, I thought they wanted to keep Ja, Desmond, and Jaren Jackson Jr. together and try to see if they could do something there. But clearly there just weren't – that team was capped, it felt like, at what they could really do. I think they got 48 wins, so I don't want to discredit them too much because that is an immense amount of wins in a season for a team that got limited in the first round like that. But, it's a give and take. Like, I think some teams are probably closer than they think to championship contention. They just need a couple things to go their way, maybe a little luck.
Are the Clippers included?
They were this year, in my opinion. They were a couple. They were a putback dunk away from some craziness. There was I think they were up. They were up 1 with 30 seconds on the ball with the ball in Kawhi's hands in game 1. So like, it's that kind of league where like you need a little bit of luck. I know people don't like that answer, but you need a little bit of luck and a little bit of things to go your way. I think teams just need. Your question was about Desmond Bane. I guess I was surprised by it. I guess I would say more so because of the team that traded for him. Because it felt like they needed more of a point guard. The way Jalen Suggs has developed into more of a defender, Anthony Black as well. So, and then the four first round picks, the 4 in a swap, I believe it was. Yep. Look, I mean, I guess if Orlando's going to be as good as they are, and some of the other teams that those picks belong to are going to be as good as they are, those picks won't be that great. But you do have the picks to potentially flip in another trade. I believe one of those picks they got was a Phoenix pick, which they've been in the news, maybe trying to trade off Kevin Durant. They could be a team that maybe wants their pick back and wants to be able to send him. I know Kevin Durant was a team that was interested. The Grizzlies were a team that was interested in KD last season, but they really didn't want to break up their trio of Ja, Des, and Jaren Jackson. So who knows? Maybe this changes things here, but. The picks obviously give the Grizzlies some flexibility and opens up a spot for Jalen Wells, who played pretty well this year, to be more of a starter and see what he has there. So definitely surprising. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm so tired of hearing about Kevin Durant trade rumors around the finals. It's exhausting.
But I started with the finals with you. We talked about all that. Now I'm getting to this other stuff.
No. It's, I meant more so on social media. Like every time you log on, all you see is Kevin Durant trade rumors. That's what I meant. No, I'm fine talking about it.
No, I'm sure Adam Silver would also like that stuff to be pushed back a little bit. But is there still an outside shot the Clippers could end up with him, since some are reporting that is the case?
I just don't see it. I mean, it sounds like one of those. Like, I think with every report, you have to kind of gauge where that bit might be coming from. Like, I'm sure the Clippers are interested in Kevin Durant, like they have been for probably a decade now. They just really don't have the assets to probably go get him. I think their only avenue might be if they were willing to put Zoo on the block, and I just don't know why you would do that. It really doesn't make sense to me why you would do that. So
They don't
I
put
don't
him on the block enough as a Clipper on the court.
yeah, so I really don't see why they would do that. It'd be very surprising to me if they did that. So I don't think maybe there'll be a team that's kind of a third team to help facilitate the trade. Maybe they get a pick here or something, or unload some salary. But I can't see them going landing KD in this trade.
What's the biggest move that wouldn't totally shock you by the Clippers that's realistic this summer? What's like the move that would be like, yeah, it's a big move, but it's somewhat realistic?
As far as you're thinking by trade?
Yeah, it'd have to be.
I actually don't know. I really don't, because this really feels like
you think it's a sure thing that James Harden is back?
I think so.
What if he wants 3 years instead of 2?
Then we'll give you I don't know about that. I feel like even when they got here and then dating back to last season, they were pretty aligned on what kind of deals he was going to get. I mean, I guess no, I really don't see him. I think they want everything aligned in the same kind of timeline here. Like I don't think it would make sense to give him an extra year. I mean, maybe if you wanted to and you really wanted to, maybe give him a non-guarantee or something. But I think it's going to be probably a 2+1 or something, or just a straight up 2-year deal or something like that. So that by 2027 they're all aligned. But I really don't know what kind of trade they're looking at, because I know everyone's talked about Norm potentially being on the block. I know people don't like it. I could also see them kind of maybe even extending him and then kind of looking to trade him down the line once you have a year or two more on his contract and go from there. But I really don't know. It's tough to gauge where this team's at, because it's tough to gauge where other teams are at as far as their level of are we competing next year? Are we not? Do we want to avoid the luxury tax? Do we not? Like all those teams, I think, have to make decisions. And I think once we pass draft night, we'll kind of get an idea of where a lot of the teams are. But I think it's really hard to predict where a lot of these teams will be and kind of what will be available to the Clippers. The one thing I will say is I know I've seen his name a lot. I don't really see John Collins being a big difference maker on this team. He's not a guy that's defended at a really high level. But again, that could also just be a product of playing on really bad teams like the Utah Jazz or the Atlanta Hawks. I think he's had a year where he shot 40% from 3. I don't think he's had more than that. I might be wrong about that. So, I don't know. It doesn't strike me as a guy who would really change the game for the Clippers, but you never know what a new environment can do to a guy.
Is that their biggest need in your mind? Still power forward?
I think they need athleticism more than anything. I just think they need a 3-4, but someone who can get out and run, defend some of the bigger guys. I know they're a dime a dozen, and it's easy to just say this, but maybe more of a point forward, a guy who can facilitate an offense, but also be a bigger wing, who's athletic. Again, I realize that's much easier said than done and really hard to find, but that's really where I'm at with them. I think it kind of depends what they do with their shooting issues. Like if Norm is back, they kind of have the shooting and some of the scoring handles, so they could probably focus more on the athleticism and the defensive side. If Norm's not back or they end up trading him, you probably need to find a scorer to make up for some of his offense that's missing, especially during the regular season. So, again, kind of just got to see where everything's at by the draft, by free agency.
What percentage chance do you put on them using the 30th pick in the draft this year?
I mean, I think they could use it. That's a first-round pick. That has to be a guaranteed contract. I don't know if they necessarily want that, but I don't think you have any problem moving on from a first-round pick that late if you really wanted to. I think they'll probably use it. I think they'll probably use it.
So better than not, they end up using it?
They'll probably keep it and use it, yeah. But that's not to say that pick is going to, play next season or even be on the roster come training camp. I think with this team, you have to leave all options on the table. I think we've seen that from them. So, yeah, I think if you're looking at young guys, like I think this is going to be a massive year, especially summer league with guys like Jordan Miller and Kobe Brown. Like I think if these aren't the years for them, like you got to move on from them. If you're not going to give them a chance, or if you don't feel like they're ready, you probably have to move on and see what else you can get there. I think they've both shown glimpses of being ready, and I don't know that you can fully know without giving them a good 10 to 20 game sample size and really seeing what they have. But I think the Clippers' youth has been a problem for quite a while now, outside of probably Terrence Mann, where they haven't really been able to get much out of their youth. So that 30th pick, I think, will also depend on what you get out of guys like Kobe, Jordan, and I, for the life of me, can't remember who else they have on two ways. But yeah, those guys.
I had Joseph Riot Ward on the show recently, and he brought up that he could see it that maybe Kawhi has some concerns over the direction this team is going, since it's been so open about they're trying to wait till the summer of 2027. Well, how does he fit in? He's got 2 more years on his deal. Do you think Kawhi is content with just improving around the margins and running it back, and hopefully he's healthier this season with a healthy off season? Or do you think it could ever get to a point where maybe Kawhi Leonard starts thinking about, I'm near the end of my career, this team isn't contending at the highest level, and maybe he wants to go somewhere else?
It's entirely possible. But I wouldn't go that far. I think the first big step for him was to be able to finish out a year healthy and to be able to start training camp healthy. And this is the first time he's going to be able to do that in what?
Since 2021.
Years? Yeah, 4 or 5 years. And so even then he was still rehabbing after that. He was still doing some light rehab, I think, from where he wasn't able to do everything he wanted to. So, yeah, I think as far as Kawhi's level of content, I think he's fine for now until we hear otherwise. I'm assuming he's fine. I think we always understood that coming back from the injuries he did was always going to be a long-term process, a multi-year process. And so, one of those steps was complete, finishing the season healthy. And even then, I think you look at this roster, there's a very good chance they could have been playing into late May. Like, I think as great as the Thunder have been, that they have shown some weaknesses. And so, that Nuggets series really could have gone either way before that Game 7 eruption that we got to watch. And so I don't. Again, the Clippers are one of those teams to me that's not as far as maybe other teams are, and I think they recognize that. But they're also probably trying to keep their flexibility open for the next couple of years, where you're not losing a potential draft pick, or you're not a second apron team that's limited in their ability to retool. And so I think Kawhi's content, but I don't know for sure, but I would say he's content because this has always seemed like a multi-year plan where he gets to the offseason healthy, is able to start next season at 100%, and then we kind of go from there and see what this roster has. This team won 50 games with Kawhi playing 37, if I'm not mistaken, of the 82. So I'm curious, what do they look like over a full 82? What do James and Kawhi look like over a full 82 together? Add in Norm, who had a career year, Zoo even better. Like, what do those guys look like together? Bogey was, I think he came off an injury to start the Atlanta year, was not good to start the year, especially coming off the Olympics that he played in. So, like, a lot of these guys are coming off actual offseason. Nico played in the Olympics last year, so he didn't really have an offseason. Like, you're talking about guys who actually have an offseason now. So, would be curious to see that. That's kind of why I wouldn't be surprised to see them bring this group back and at least see what they can do to start the year and kind of fill in the gaps from there.
Last one for you, Tomer. As we look down the line, as I mentioned, 2027, a lot of cap room possibly in 2026 too. Do you think the Clippers already have their eye on a couple of guys? They have a plan of the type of guys and maybe names they want to go after. People have talked a lot about LaMelo Ball. Trae Young could be available in the near future. Is there anybody that the Clippers already are making plans for?
I'm sure there are. I don't know this for a fact, but I know, guys like De'Aaron Fox and Luka were probably available much earlier than anyone ever thought they would be. And so, I think the closer you get to 2027, the more you're able to have expirings, put up, you get more picks back. You're able to kind of help facilitate trades easier. And so I know that Luka and De'Aaron being available as they were when they were was a little too early for them. But yeah, I mean, guys like Trae Young, I could definitely see. Giannis, if he's available, could certainly see. I know there's the LaMelo Ball hype or the talk around him, and kind of curious where exactly that's coming from. He's not a guy who's really played winning basketball and hasn't shown the maturity of a guy ready to play winning basketball, as great as of an individual player as he is. And so, I really am curious how much intrigue or interest there is there. But I wouldn't rule out anything. I think the one thing we found out in 2019 is no one knew Paul George was available after he just signed that deal with the Thunder. And so if there's a guy with a year or two left on their deals and maybe that team isn't going anywhere, who knows? Maybe even Anthony Edwards is a guy that could be available down. Like you never know. So I think the Clippers have made themselves a very desirable destination. They obviously have that new arena, top tier facility. Steve Ballmer obviously is. If you've seen that road locker room, when they're in there, players are taking notice of the hot tub they have there, the individual showers and the massage rooms and the workout room. And they figure, if this is the road locker room, which everyone I have talked to has said that's the best road locker room in the NBA by far. If that's the road locker room, what do the home facilities look like? So, again, I wouldn't rule out anyone being available or anyone potentially coming here via trade or free agency. But I'm sure they have their names, and I'm sure a lot more names will either drop off the list, or be added to the list. But we still are so far away. It feels like so far away from right now.
He is Tomer Azarly, Clippers and NBA reporter for Clutch Points. He's in OKC for the NBA Finals. And you know what? I think we got through this entire interview without Tomer flipping open his phone and playing solitaire. I think I had his complete undivided attention. Tomer, thanks for doing this. I appreciate you.
I actually have Pokemon Go in the background right now. No, I'm just kidding. No, thank you. Appreciate you for having me. It's good to talk Clippers every once in a while. Coming on, I was like, man, what are we going to talk about? What's trending Clipper wise? Is there anything big I've missed over the last couple of days? So, I also I had an interview with SGA's dad a couple of days ago that I'm going to be posting about in the soon to be future. And he talked about the Clippers a little bit. So,
he didn't throw any shade, did he?
I wouldn't say shade, but we talked about it a little bit about the trade and everything. So hopefully it is
where can people find that?
To look at it. I'll be writing it on Clutch Points. We're still undecided if we're going to do the video aspect of it, but I'll be writing the full interview on Clutch Points, and it'll be up in a couple of days. You'll see it on my Twitter, which is at TomerAzarly.
Tomer, be good. Safe travels, my friend. Appreciate the knowledge.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you having me, man. We'll talk.
There goes Tomer Azarly from Clutch Points. As I once again do the old switcheroo here. Hold on, guys. Can it go back to the premium sound?
All right. If anybody wants to call in and respond to this lengthy episode, as they usually are here on Clippers Talk, 877-520-1150, 877-520-1150. But I do have one more segment for you guys, because why not? I got time today. We started early. I feel good about this show. Not about me, but the good guests we had on, like Tomer Azarly here. So I think I found an open I can use and I premiered this a couple weeks ago, our new Clippers Reddit segment here on the show. I think I found something that could be used as a bit of an open for this segment. Help me out, Obi-Wan.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
I've just played Clippers Reddit, but you guys do have that reputation. There were 3 things that caught my eye as of late on Clippers Reddit, which can be a little bit on the toxic side sometimes. I've been featured there. They came after me. Totally understandable. As you can tell here, big time a-hole. So somebody brought up this graph of winning percentage versus the average age of NBA teams in the regular season. And you have the X and Y axis. And the Clippers actually are doing pretty damn good in this category. You can see they're an outlier for being, well, the oldest team on here when you go off of average minutes played or average age by minutes played from teams. That's how you really find out who has the oldest team in the league. It's not just who's on the roster, it's who's actually playing out there on the court. And while the Clippers' average age is way up here, their regular season win-loss percentage is pretty far to the right. In fact, only really definitively behind OKC, the Cavs, and the Boston Celtics. I'm not sure how many years this spans. It doesn't say that, if it's just this season, but kind of impressive as much as people get on the Clippers for being older. Well, they also are an older team that has been able to rack up a lot of wins. So, give them some credit. And I will give Clippers Reddit some credit for some good information there.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Your other Clippers Reddit story. I, for the life of me, cannot figure out what the hell this picture is of. It's a Clippers hat. I'll share the screen with you guys here. And it's some alternate logo. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's an octopus. I don't know if it's a hang loose hand signal thing. Apparently, it's an official 47 brand hat. Someone said they bought it from a Clippers fan's yard sale. Was this a promotional item? Is that an outline of a C? And then what is this insignia here in the middle? I need you guys to help me. What is this supposed to be? Okay, I get the back of the hat. We got the Clippers there. And it was used. This person still found it appealing at a yard sale, and it's NBA licensed. What is this hat? What is this logo? Help me, Clipper Nation. Someone said Vietnam Clipper hat. I don't know what that is, but I'm very, very interested. If I could zoom in even further here, I would, but you guys got a good look at the emblem. What's it supposed to be? I don't know. It's like a video game character. I feel like we got some fingers here. Maybe it's a 3-point sign. Is it supposed to be LA? Is that I know. Get in the comment section, please. Obviously, it's Slick's LA symbol. So that's an LA. That's what that is. That's a hand gesturing LA. How come I can't see it? Like what part's the L? What part is the A? It's totally lost on me. Yeah, I'm the dumbass here of this one, but I'm glad it was brought up. And who's Slick? Edward is just really a Debbie Downer. Looks like Mickey Mouse hands. Yeah, I can see that with the LA. Who's Slick? What is this? What era of Clippers basketball is this? What year is this? When did this come out? Is this that rare of an item? I've just never seen it before. MKXLNT said, I see some other stuff with this logo out there. Point me to it. @follow Adam A on X, please. It's just bugging the hell out of me at this point. Like I don't know what it is. It's frustrating. It's ticking me off, honestly. Like, I don't know. It's, I got OCD. OG Slick times 47 brand. Who's OG Slick? Who's that? Why am I so out of the loop here? All right, one more story for you from Clippers Reddit. I'm not going to play the Obi-Wan again and get my channel flagged. I know George Lucas is coming for me. Somebody had the balls, and this is where Clippers Reddit goes off the rails. They took things too far, and I haven't read the comment section yet. I want to bring it to you because I saw what the title was to this post, and we'll go through it together organically. Someone said PG trade. Should the Clippers go out and bring back Paul George this summer? Really? This is trolling, right? This is rage baiting. First comment. Why should we? You're joking, right? Second comment. Maybe we should trade back for CP3, DeAndre Jordan, and Blake Griffin too. Somebody else just brought up the bald guy from Pawn Stars laughing. Next comment. Hell no. Next comment. Should I also go out and get a nail gun and nail my D to the floor? Someone said that would be less painful than watching PG pass. That's for sure. Claw Time said the only way we should take PG is for the minimum when he gets bought out. It would actually be hilarious to see PG play so bad he gets bought out when we sign him back for the minimum and he starts playing decent. Okay. Pegatom said Philly would have to compensate us heavily to take that bloated contract back. I'm talking multiple first-round picks. And even if they offered the picks, I still wouldn't do it. He can take his candy ass and stay in Philly. Would think about it if they also attach the number 3 and our pick back. Someone said subtraction by addition. That's pretty funny. Delete this, nephew. Somehow I'd rather watch the Asian all-star team we were working out. All the announcers trying to pronounce the names while all the players can't talk to each other. Someone said just learn Carney like some of the wrestlers do and they'll be able to communicate. I don't know if this is something racist or not. I'm just going to skip by that part. It's Clippers Reddit. Frequent said, mods, take this down if you're listening to them trading for bringing Paul George back. Trade, no. Vet minimum signing, maybe. What assets and why? Sure, if it means we can turn around and trade him to get SGA back. I know Clippers fans on here are rooting against SGA, but you know damn well if we can trade Paula Georgina to get back that free throw merchant, you would do it in a heartbeat. SGA really wanted to be a Clipper. Never forget that. Kawhi simply duped us. Okay, I'm done. Clippers Reddit. I got my full serving.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
I don't know if I was cautious enough, Obi-Wan. All right. Appreciate you all. This has been a 2-hour edition of Clippers Talk on a Sunday. Thanks for Mike Jaglin, the Jaguar, for coming on. Thanks to Tomer Azarly coming on from OKC. Appreciate everyone here. Love y'all. Even Clippers Reddit. Love your neighbor. We'll talk to you guys soon. Good night.
Off the air.